Welcome to A Changed Life. This is a podcast about choosing differently, how you think, how you relate, and how you lead yourself. Here we focus on the inner shifts that create real momentum and open up what's possible next. This is Elise, and today I want to talk to you about something that explains a lot of frustration in what I am hoping to be a very simple way. So we're going to look at why patterns keep repeating. Why does it feel like you change the person or the job or the city or the strategy, and somehow you end up right back in the same emotional place? Before we go any further, I want to be very, very clear about what I'm not saying. I am not saying you caused abuse. I am not saying you deserved any harm. I'm not saying that a child manifested their trauma. I am not saying any of those things. And it is so important for me to say it like this because I want to be very clear about that. Child does not create abuse. A victim does not cause violence. That responsibility belongs to the person who did the harm. All of that responsibility belongs to the person who did the harm. What I am talking about is what happens after life shapes you. Because your nervous system can learn patterns for survival and then keep running those patterns long after they stop serving you. That is not shame. That's mechanics, and mechanics can change. So the real reason patterns repeat is that many people assume patterns repeat because they're bad at picking or keep choosing wrong. So the way that they are approaching their patterns, their come from is left of center. A lot of the time, it is a lot simpler than that. Okay, so hang in there. Really take this in. Your nervous system is drawn to what feels familiar. Not what's best, not what's healthiest, what's familiar. Because we know that we have cellular memory, and the memory is in our body. So if inconsistency was familiar, steadiness can feel suspicious. If you had to work really hard for love, ease, when it's easeful, it can feel unsafe or it could feel boring. Same thing with chaos. If you were raised in a chaotic environment, calm could actually feel boring. So you don't just choose from logic, you choose from resonance. Your system says, I know how to operate here. I know how to do this dance. Doesn't mean the dance is a good dance. It just means that it knows how to do it. It's been practiced. And that could look like chemistry or urgency or intensity, or even relief, but it's often familiarity. So what does it mean when we say that we are reliving what is unhealed? What does that mean? When I say unhealed, I don't mean broken. Unhealed means your reaction is faster than your awareness. It means a present moment touches an old imprint, and suddenly, in seconds, you're not responding to what's happening now, you're responding to what your system learned long ago. I want to share something personal with you. My sister passed, it's 20 years this year, and for many years, I could replay the memory of getting the call from my mother, or actually returning a call to my mother because I was teaching at the time and I was in finals. And when I got done and I got down to the lobby and I was going to my car, I called my mom back because I saw that I had a lot of missed calls from her. I can replay that. And when I used to replay that in seconds, it would be as though it was happening right now. It was so ingrained in my body. And that response was so familiar for me and so painful. And that is what I'm talking about. When you have a physical, emotional response to something that is so powerful that takes over in seconds, you know that is unhealed. That is an unhealed wound. And most wounds fall into a few buckets. I'm going to narrow them down into 5. And if I miss something, one of your buckets, no disrespect. I'm trying to kind of group these because I truly believe that most of them fall into this. I'm not safe. I'm not enough. I'm not seen. I'm not chosen. I'm not valued. Or I'm not worthy. When one of those gets activated, your system goes into protection mode, and protection has a style. Some people chase. Some people shut down. Some people get cold or even mean. Some people over-explain. Some people just completely numb out. Different style, same function. Avoid feeling the original wound again. So let's make this real. Let's bring this into your life. Your partner doesn't respond for a few hours. Maybe you send a text. If your core wound is, I'm not chosen or I'm not safe, your body reacts before your mind does. You might feel a tightness in your chest. You might feel your stomach kind of sink. That immediate story that goes off in your head, here we go again. Oh my God, it's happening again. So you send a second text and then a third. Or you go cold. Or you become accusatory. Or you decide you don't even care. Or you start building a case in your head, and I'm telling you, I have done this. And then you'll say, we always end up here, or this always happens to me. But the pattern isn't the delayed text. The pattern is what your system does when the wound gets touched. This is why couples can argue about the same thing for years. This is why families can argue about the same thing for years. This is why friends can have a falling out about the same thing for years, because they're not fighting about the present event. They're reacting from an old imprint. Let me give you another example. Take it out of the relationship realm and let's take it into money. Let's talk about money for a second, because money is where safety wounds show up loudly. You can say you want freedom or stability or abundance or peace with money, but if your core wound is, I'm not safe, money becomes survival. And when money is survival, your nervous system often chooses short-term relief over long-term alignment. And let's look at what this might look like. It might be if you're a clinician or a coach or you're in the service industry, you might undercharge because rejection feels threatening. So you have very low prices. You may overspend as a way to regulate your stress. You may avoid looking at your numbers and being dialed into your financials because looking feels daunting and overwhelming. You may stay in financial agreements that keep you smaller because predictability feels safer than growth, even though you want the growth. And then you will say things like, money is always stressful for me. I'm not good with money. Money freaks me out. And that might be true. But it may also be that your system is recreating urgency because urgency is a familiar feeling. An important note here, not everything money related is mindset. Systems are real, constraints are real, trauma and inequality, they are real. But even inside real constraints, your nervous system still holds a pattern. And once you see the pattern, you can actually start to change how you respond. So the really important thing here is to notice the patterns of your behavior. And I want us to, it's very important that we talk about this. A lot of people know their attachment style. They know their wounds. They can name their pattern perfectly, and it still repeats because knowledge doesn't rewire your nervous system. Logic doesn't rewire your nervous system. Understanding, comprehension doesn't do it. It has to be a lived experience. You have to actually have the lived experience to increase your capacity to hold that new experience. Healing is not insight accumulation or compounding. Healing is building the capacity to respond differently when your system gets activated. That is such an important piece of this puzzle. Capacity is such an important piece of this puzzle. It's the moment you catch yourself before you go on autopilot. It is the moment that you pause long enough to actually choose. That is actually the work. The work is, there's so much of the work that happens in slowing it way down and pausing. Your wounded self is very fast. It wants certainty, it wants relief, it wants control, it wants protection, and it wants it now. Your higher self is slower. It can tolerate discomfort without making it mean something catastrophic. The difference isn't your character, it's regulation. And regulation creates choice. I worked with a woman for about 18 months, and she was one of the most dysregulated humans I've ever dealt with in my life. And she knew it. She would say, I'm not regulated. I'm totally dysregulated. I can't handle this. And she had a big job. She ran a company. She was responsible for a lot of clients and other, coaches and clinicians. And she was one of the most dysregulated people, and she was fully aware of her dysregulation. And didn't have the tools in her tool chest to actually start to understand what it would take to rewire her nervous system and create new lived experiences that she could start to have in her life little by little. And so the chaos and the fractured relationships and things falling apart financially, all of these things just kept repeating. So here is the rewire practice. And here's what you can actually start doing today, if in the event that you get activated today. When you feel activated, don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what wound just got touched? Was it feeling safe, being seen, being chosen, being enough, being worthy, valued, being valuable? Ask yourself, what was the wound that just got touched? Number 2, what is my default protection move? Know yourself. Deeply, deeply know yourself. Do I start to chase and I want more information and I want to talk about it? Do I go cold and do I shut down? Do I have to prove my point? I have to take control. Do I numb out? Do I start over-explaining everything? Do I get mean? What is your default protection move? And then number 3, what would a 5% different response look like right now? Not perfect, not saintly, not any of that. Just 5% different. It might be simple things like taking one slow breath before you speak. Asking a question, tell me more about that. Can you clarify that for me? Instead of accusing and going on the attack, ask questions. Delay that reactive text. Just do not respond. I do this often with my clients. I will get a message from a client and there's something in me that I want to show up for them right away. And I have learned to just pause and sit with it and see if my initial response is the same response in 30 minutes. A lot of times it is, sometimes it's not. So that 5% difference is nothing small. That's the beginning of a new pattern. And new patterns change through repetition of responding in a new way. Patterns repeat when your system keeps reaching for what it knows, for what's familiar. A changed life isn't built by pretending you never get triggered or having a goal of never getting triggered. That's not the goal. I hope that that's not your goal. A changed life is built by noticing faster, pausing sooner, and choosing how you respond more often. Not all at once, but over time, you will change those patterns. And what was unhealed will have a chance to actually heal. So as you move through your week, notice what keeps repeating. Not to judge yourself, just get curious. Notice. Awareness is such a big piece of this because if you're not dialed in, if you're not paying attention to yourself, to the feelings, the sensations in your body when your stomach drops or flips over or something kind of takes your breath away or something just feels really bad in your body, if you're not paying attention to that, you're going to miss these signals. Because once you can name the pattern without shaming yourself, you can interrupt it with choice. And that's where change actually begins. I also want to encourage you to share this episode with somebody. Either share the link or have a conversation with them, because what you internalize, what you metabolize, and what you can then explain to another takes your learning into a lived experience, because you're now having an experience of actually being able to share it and teach it to somebody else. So I really want to encourage you to do that. And I will see you soon. If something in today's episode resonated with you, you'll find a link in the show notes to book a free consultation call. Or you can visit elisecraft.com to explore my programs and free resources. Nothing changes until you do. And when you do, everything does. This is a changed life. Not all at once, but for good.